Tide that takes, tide that brings. Some losses don't scream, they go silent, and that silence lasts for decades. Miguel was 7 years old when he learned what absence truly meant. Not the everyday kind, not a forgotten toy or a night without a bedtime story. This was the kind of absence that cuts deep, the absence of a brother. Gabriel was his older brother, 11 years his senior, almost like a second father. At 18, he had an easy laugh, endless patience, and eyes that seemed to protect the whole world. He took Miguel fishing on weekends, and when they didn't have fishing rods, they'd use sticks. Gabriel used to say the fish didn't matter. What mattered was the weight. The good silence of the water, he called it. They lived in a small coastal village, weathered by salt and time, where the windows never fully closed from the sea breeze and the rooftops creaked like old wood whispering stories. In that village, everything was known, except what happened the day Gabriel disappeared. It was an ordinary morning. The sea looked calm, but the wind tasted strange. Gabriel had gone out to help a friend with a short boat trip. Miguel remembered begging to go along. He remembered the tight hug Gabriel gave him before leaving, and the whispered words in his ear. Take care of Mom, and keep believing in the sea. The boat never came back. They found pieces of it days later, floating near the rocks, along with the anchor and a shirt. Gabriel's shirt, the light blue one with a tear on the shoulder, the only gift from their father before he too disappeared. There was no funeral, just the sound of the waves and the emptiness. From that day on, Miguel avoided the sea. The house felt smaller without Gabriel. His mother, once full of songs and embroidery, began sewing in silence. And Miguel grew up with a scar no one could see, but one that shaped everything, the way he loved, trusted, waited. He would later become a psychologist, maybe as an unconscious attempt to understand his own pain. Repressed pain doesn't go away. It disguises itself as normal. At 29, Miguel lived far from the village. He taught human behavior at a university and helped patients deal with loss, while his own, undigested, became a locked room inside his mind. He never spoke of Gabriel. Not in therapy, not even in dreams. It was as if his brother had turned to vapor. Yet deep down, his entire life was a silent effort not to forget. One ordinary Saturday, walking through the old downtown streets, he was drawn to a small thrift store tucked between worn buildings. The scent of damp wood and yellowed paper brought back childhood memories. A trigger. Psychologically, smell is one of the strongest anchors to emotional memory. And in that moment, Miguel wasn't a man anymore. He was the boy curled in his brother's lap, listening to tales about talking whales. He stepped into the store as if walking through a portal. At the back of the shop, between torn suitcases and dusty radios, sat a brown canvas backpack. It had a small rip on the side, stitched roughly with red thread. Miguel froze. That red stitch, that tear. He knew it. He had helped sew it as a child. His hands trembled as he picked it up. His heart pounded like it wanted to escape his chest. He unzipped it. Inside were 2 worn photographs. One of them, himself as a boy, asleep in Gabriel's lap. And 3 letters, all addressed to Miggs, his childhood nickname. None had ever been sent. The handwriting was unmistakable. Gabriel's. The letters spoke of a place called São Miguel do Norte. They spoke of an accident, a rescue, a hospital, and a fractured memory. Gabriel wrote that he had woken up not knowing who he was, but remembered one name: Miguel. He had written those words months after the accident. And then, silence. The world spun around Miguel. Years of grief collapsed in seconds. Psychologically, it was the collapse of a core belief. Gabriel's death had been the foundation of his life, and now he might be alive. That night, Miguel didn't sleep. He searched for São Miguel do Norte, a tiny fishing village, isolated 600 kilometers away. Close enough to try, far enough to hesitate. By morning, he was on the road. Some searches aren't for people. They're for lost pieces of yourself. He arrived under a light drizzle. The salty air was the same as in childhood. The wind brushed, his face like a whispered memory. He asked around in bars, markets, small churches. Described a tall man, brown eyes, a scar on his brow. The same scar Miguel had caused with a wooden toy car at age 6. Most people shook their heads. Until one old man said he'd seen someone like that. A quiet fisherman, lives near the cliffs. Looks like he's always waiting for something. Miguel went there. The house was simple. Weathered wood, clothes on the line, a scent of fish in the air. On the porch, a man sat, thick beard, skin burned by the sun. He was holding a small sculpture, a whale, just like the ones Gabriel used to carve as a boy. The man looked up, and for a second, he froze. Miguel? The voice came out hoarse like a distant echo. Miguel wanted to run, to scream, to cry, but he just collapsed to his knees. "Is it really you, Gabriel? It's me." Migs. Silence. Then tears. Gabriel approached, touched his brother's face, as if testing a dream. "I've waited so long for this day," he whispered. In that embrace, decades of pain melted away. In that moment, the sea gave back what it had taken. Gabriel told him everything. After the accident, fishermen had rescued him and taken him to a hospital with no ID. He hovered between life and death. His memory, his identity, never fully returned. He spent his life carving, trying to sculpt what he couldn't remember, but could feel. Miguel, he never left that village. Something inside told him he had to wait, and he waited. Now, they were two again. Miguel brought Gabriel home, back to the old village, back to their mother, still alive, back to laughter, to music, to life. And for the first time in many, many years, Miguel returned to the sea, beside his brother. The silence of the water, at last, was good again.